I'm Riley Morgan, 42 years old, wife of Ethan Morgan, the CEO of Morgan Enterprises, a sprawling empire of hotels and real estate forged over 3 generations by his family. For 15 years, I've played the role of the perfect wife, standing faithfully in Ethan's shadow, orchestrating the delicate balance of our family's legacy from behind the scenes. My husband thrives in the spotlight, his charisma filling boardrooms and gala halls, but it's my hand that has quietly guided the company's course. Through a trust established by my late father-in-law Richard Morgan, I control 57% of the voting shares of Morgan Enterprises. It's a power I've never flaunted, a secret I've kept to let Ethan shine as the face of the empire. I don't crave the stage. My only ambition is to protect our family and the legacy we've inherited. Our marriage wasn't always a calculated dance. In the early days, I loved Ethan's fire, his relentless drive to expand Morgan Enterprises beyond the single luxury hotel his grandfather built. I saw in him the potential Richard had nurtured, a vision to make our name synonymous with elegance and power across the globe. But I also saw his flaws, the arrogance that grew with every deal he closed, the way he dismissed my suggestions in private while presenting them as his own in board meetings. I let it slide, not out of weakness, but strategy. Richard had warned me before we married, his sharp eyes studying me over a glass of bourbon. "Ethan's brilliant, Riley, but he's reckless. You'll need to be his compass." So I became just that, steering him subtly, signing off on every major decision while letting him believe he held the reins. Trust was Richard's masterstroke, a safeguard he crafted when he stepped down as CEO. He'd seen too many family empires crumble under ego or greed, and he wasn't about to let his son's ambition be the ruin of Morgan Enterprises. The document, locked away in a sleek silver case, named me the controlling shareholder, granting me authority over the company's voting shares. Ethan knew of the trust but never grasped its full weight, assuming my signatures on proxy forms were mere formality. I played along, attending galas in understated navy dresses, memorizing the names of board members' children, and ensuring every corporate dinner was flawless. To the world, I was the dutiful wife. To those who paid attention, like Richard's steely widow Eleanor, I was something more. Tonight, that truth would come to light. The annual Morgan Enterprises family dinner at the Morgan Grand Hotel was no ordinary affair. Held on the 58th floor in the Crown Room, it was a theater of power, where every detail, from the dimmed chandeliers to the precise 72-degree temperature, served a purpose. My twins, Ava and Noah, were already there, their 19-year-old faces a blend of their father's confidence and my quiet resolve. Ava's sharp wit mirrored Ethan's, while Noah's introspective intensity reminded me of my own father, a man who taught me the value of watching before acting. Eleanor swept in, her silver hair immaculate, her presence commanding despite her 76 years. She'd been my ally from the start, her knowing glance as a reminder that she understood the game I played. As I adjusted the table settings, I felt the weight of the evening settle over me. Ethan was late as usual, his urgent meeting a flimsy excuse I'd heard too many times. But this time I was ready. 3 months ago, an anonymous email had landed in my inbox, attached with a recording of Ethan's voice, scheming, calculating, betraying. Tonight, he would walk into a trap of his own making, and I would step out of the shadows to claim what was rightfully mine. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Everything changed at the annual Morgan Enterprises family dinner, held in the opulent Crown Room on the 58th floor of the Morgan Grand Hotel. I had orchestrated every detail with the precision of a conductor. The crystal chandeliers cast a soft, golden glow, dimmed just enough to suit Ethan's preference for understated elegance. The thermostat was set to exactly 72 degrees, a quirk I'd memorized to keep him comfortable during high-stakes discussions. The table was a masterpiece of white linens, polished silver, and fresh orchids, each place setting tailored to the preferences of the board members who would join us. This wasn't just a meal, it was a stage, a delicate dance of power and perception where every gesture carried weight. My twins, Ava and Noah, were already there, their 19-year-old faces a blend of poise and anticipation. Ava, with her father's charisma and a spark of defiance in her green eyes, adjusted her bracelet as she scanned the room, ready to play her part. Noah, quieter but no less sharp, straightened his tie, his thoughtful gaze reminding me of my own father, a man who taught me to observe before acting. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Morgan, swept in like royalty, her silver hair impeccably styled, her 76 years doing nothing to dull her commanding presence. She'd been my silent ally from the start, her knowing nods a reminder that she saw through the polished facade I'd maintained for 15 years. Tonight, her sharp eyes lingered on me, as if sensing the storm I'd been preparing for. We waited for Ethan, who, as always, was late, his excuse of an urgent meeting as predictable as the city skyline beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. I busied myself with final instructions to the staff, ensuring the Bordeaux was ready for Ethan and the vegan options were in place for Victoria Lane, our newest board member. The room buzzed with the low hum of anticipation as board members arrived. Harold Winters, the chairman with his signature red pocket square, David Carter, our chief legal counsel, whose loyalty to the company outweighed his deference to Ethan, and others who had known me only as the gracious hostess, the perfect corporate wife. They had no idea I'd been their invisible architect, signing off on every major decision while Ethan basked in the credit. At 7:20, 40 minutes late, the double doors swung open and Ethan strode in, his tailored suit as impeccable as his confidence. But it wasn't his entrance that stopped the room, it was the woman on his arm. Lila Harper, maybe 28, was striking, her glossy dark hair framing delicate features, her red dress clinging to a figure that proudly displayed a 5-month pregnancy. The room fell silent, forks pausing midair as Ethan's smug grin swept over us. "Good evening, everyone," he announced, his voice carrying the practiced ease of a man who owned every space he entered. "I apologize for our tardiness. Allow me to introduce Lila Harper, our Special Projects Director for Asian markets." He paused, his eyes locking on mine, a glint of triumph in them. "And the mother of my son, the next heir to Morgan Enterprises." The silence was deafening. Ava's knuckles whitened around her water glass, her jaw tight with barely concealed fury. Noah's gaze flicked to me, searching for a cue. Eleanor's hand tightened on her platinum watch, her face unreadable but her eyes sharp as knives. The board members exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others curious, all waiting for my reaction. Ethan's words hung in the air, a calculated blow meant to humiliate me, to assert his dominance not just over our marriage but over the empire we'd built together. He expected tears, rage, or perhaps a quiet retreat. He didn't know me at all. I rose from my seat, my navy dress smooth and elegant, my smile as polished as the crystal on the table. "Welcome, Miss Harper," I said, extending a hand to Lila, whose wide eyes betrayed her surprise at my composure. "Please take the seat beside me. It's our place for honored guests." Lila hesitated, glancing at Ethan, but my steady gaze drew her in. She took my hand, her grip uncertain, and murmured, "Thank you, Mrs. Morgan." "That's very kind." I guided her to the chair, ignoring Ethan's narrowing eyes as he took his place at the head of the table. He'd scripted this moment to break me, but I'd been writing my own script for months. 3 months ago, an anonymous email had arrived in my private inbox, its subject line a single word, "Truth." Attached was a recording, grainy but unmistakable, Ethan's voice, conspiring with Lila in hushed tones about securing our future by channeling company funds into shell companies in Singapore. My heart had raced as I listened, not out of shock but clarity. I'd suspected Ethan's infidelity for years, his late nights and vague explanations too familiar to ignore. But this was different. This wasn't just betrayal of our marriage, it was a betrayal of Morgan Enterprises, of the legacy Richard had entrusted to me. I'd hired a private investigator and a team of forensic accountants, their findings confirming what the recording suggested. Ethan had siphoned $43 million into accounts he alone controlled, under the guise of an Asian expansion. Tonight, I was ready. As the servers moved to pour cocktails, I nodded to them to begin, my voice calm but deliberate. "Let's start, shall we?" Ethan would want us to carry on in his absence. Eleanor's lips twitched, a rare hint of amusement. Lila shifted uncomfortably, her hand resting protectively on her belly, while Ethan's smugness faltered for a fraction of a second. He hadn't expected this, me unshaken, in control. I turned to Lila, my tone warm but probing. "Tell me, Miss Harper, about your work in Shanghai. I understand you've been instrumental in our expansion plans." Lila, caught off guard, began to speak, her knowledge of the Chinese luxury market impressive and genuine. I guided the conversation, letting her shine, knowing every word she spoke would make Ethan's betrayal sting more when I revealed it. Ava and Noah watched me, their expressions a mix of pride and anticipation. They knew pieces of my plan, enough to trust me but not enough to carry the burden themselves. Eleanor's gaze met mine, a silent acknowledgement that the moment I'd prepared for was near. The stage was set, and Ethan, oblivious, was about to walk into the trap I'd laid with the patience of 15 years and the precision of a woman who'd learned to wield power in silence. The room froze, every eye locked on me, waiting for the crack in my composure. Ava's knuckles whitened around her water glass, her green eyes blazing with a fury I knew she was fighting to contain. Noah's gaze met mine, his quiet intensity laced with worry, searching for a hint of my next move. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, sat with the cold precision of a chess master, her sharp eyes missing nothing, as if she'd long foreseen Ethan's betrayal. The board members shifted uncomfortably, their murmurs hushed, while the servers stood frozen, sensing the weight of the moment. Ethan's announcement, parading Lila Harper, 5 months pregnant in her bold red dress, as the mother of the next heir to Morgan Enterprises and casually mentioning our divorce, was meant to break me. He expected tears, rage, or perhaps a quiet retreat into humiliation. Instead, I smiled, my voice warm as I invited Lila to sit beside me. "Please, Miss Harper, join me," I said, gesturing to the honored guest's chair. Lila hesitated, her hand brushing her belly, but she complied, murmuring, "Thank you, Mrs. Morgan." Inside, I was a furnace of resolve, not pain. I'd been preparing for this moment, and Ethan's smug performance was the opening I needed. 3 months ago, an anonymous email had landed in my private inbox, its subject a single word: truth. Attached was a grainy audio file, Ethan's voice unmistakable as he conspired with Lila about securing our future through shell companies in Singapore. The words burned into me, not for the affair which I'd suspected for years, but for his audacity to siphon Morgan Enterprises' assets. I'd hired a private investigator, a discreet professional who shadowed Ethan's late-night meetings, and a team of forensic accountants who confirmed the truth. Ethan had diverted $43 million into accounts he alone controlled, under the guise of an Asian expansion. It wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. It was an assault on the legacy Richard Morgan had entrusted to me, on the future I'd sworn to protect for Ava, Noah, and every employee who believed in our name. My home office had become a war room, stacked with financial records, legal documents, and the damning recording that would unravel Ethan's empire. As Ethan settled at the head of the table, his eyes gleamed with triumph, certain he'd humiliated me. He had no idea I'd spent weeks building an airtight case, my resolve hardened by his greed. I turned to Lila, my tone conversational but deliberate. "Miss Harper, tell us about your work in Shanghai. I hear you've been pivotal to our Asian strategy." Lila, caught off guard by my warmth, launched into a detailed explanation of the Chinese luxury market, her expertise undeniable. I nodded, encouraging her, knowing each word tightened the noose around Ethan's facade. The board listened, impressed by her insights into cultural integration, unaware of the trap I was setting. Ava and Noah watched me, their expressions a mix of pride and anticipation. They knew enough of my plan to trust me, but not enough to carry its weight. Eleanor's gaze met mine, a silent nod that the moment I'd orchestrated was near. I signaled the servers to pour cocktails, my voice steady. "Let's begin, shall we?" Ethan would want us to carry on. Eleanor's lips twitched, a rare hint of amusement. Lila shifted uncomfortably, her hand on her belly, while Ethan's smugness faltered for a split second. He hadn't expected this, me unshaken, in control. I steered the conversation to showcase Lila's strengths, asking about her Harvard education and her vision for Shanghai. Each question was a calculated move, highlighting her competence while setting the stage for Ethan's exposure. The board chairman, Harold Winters, nodded thoughtfully as Lila spoke of blending Western luxury with Chinese authenticity, unwittingly bolstering my narrative. Ethan's unease grew. This wasn't the script he'd envisioned. He'd walked in expecting to dismantle me, but I was about to turn his stage into my courtroom, armed with evidence that would shatter his carefully constructed world. As the first course was served, I steered the dinner conversation with the precision of a maestro, drawing Lila Harper into the spotlight. "Ms. Harper," I said, my voice warm but deliberate, "your work on the Asian expansion is fascinating. Could you share your insights on the Chinese luxury market?" Lila, still unsettled by my composure, hesitated before launching into a detailed analysis of cultural integration, her Harvard-honed expertise shining through. She spoke of blending Western luxury standards with authentic Chinese elements, captivating the board with her vision. Harold Winters, the chairman, leaned forward, intrigued, while Victoria Lane, our newest board member, nodded approvingly. Even Ethan, seated at the head of the table, couldn't hide a flicker of pride in Lila's performance, though it was clear he hadn't expected her to hold her own so well. I encouraged her, asking pointed questions about market trends and her role in Shanghai, each word a thread in the web I was weaving. Ava and Noah watched me, their eyes gleaming with a mix of pride and anticipation, sensing the shift in the room's dynamic. Eleanor's gaze, sharp as ever, met mine, her subtle nod confirming she knew I was setting the stage. Ethan, emboldened by the board's attention on Lila, seized the moment to reclaim control. "Speaking of Asia," he interjected, his voice smooth with practiced confidence, "our Singapore expansion is the cornerstone of Morgan Enterprises' future. The partnerships we're building, thanks in part to Lila's connections, will redefine our global presence." He flashed a triumphant grin, as if daring me to challenge him. The board members leaned in, eager for details, unaware of the storm brewing. This was the opening I'd been waiting for. I set my water glass down with a soft clink, the sound cutting through the room's murmur like a gavel. All eyes turned to me as I reached for the sleek silver case beside my chair, my movements deliberate, unhurried. "Before we dive into Singapore," I said, my tone conversational but edged with steel, "there's something the board should see." I opened the case and withdrew a single folded document, the trust created by Richard Morgan 15 years ago when I married Ethan. "This," I said, holding it up, "is the original trust document that governs Morgan Enterprises' voting shares. Confirms that I control 57% of those shares as the spouse of the CEO." The room went still, Ethan's smirk faltering. I continued, my voice steady. "For 15 years, I've authorized Ethan to exercise those voting rights as my proxy. But recent developments have required me to reassess that arrangement." I turned to the board, my gaze sweeping over their stunned faces. 3 months ago, I received evidence that Ethan has been diverting company assets, $43 million to be precise, into shell companies in Singapore, registered solely in his name, not Morgan Enterprises. The silence shattered as murmurs erupted. Ethan's face darkened, his jaw tightening. "This is absurd, Riley," he snapped, but I wasn't finished. I pulled my phone from my purse, my fingers steady as I opened the audio file from the anonymous email that had set this in motion. "Perhaps this will clarify things," I said, pressing play. Ethan's voice filled the room, unmistakable and damning. "We'll move the funds to Singapore, Lila. It's our future, yours, mine, and our sons. Riley won't suspect a thing, she's just the figurehead." Lila's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock as she realized the depth of Ethan's deception. The board members gasped, Harold Winters clutching his portfolio as if it could anchor him in the chaos. Ava's lips curved into a barely concealed smirk, while Noah's gaze hardened, his quiet strength mirroring my own. "Lies," Ethan shouted, slamming his hand on the table, but the recording played on, detailing his plan to siphon funds through shell companies disguised as an expansion. I stopped the audio and slid a stack of leather-bound portfolios across the table, distributed by my assistant, who'd been waiting discreetly by the door. "These contain forensic accounting reports from 3 independent firms," I said. "They confirm Ethan has transferred $43 million into accounts he controls, bypassing board approval and violating his fiduciary duty." Lila turned to Ethan, her voice trembling. "You told me the Singapore project was legitimate, that it was for our son's future." Ethan reached for her hand, but she pulled away, her trust in him crumbling. The room erupted into chaos. Board members flipped through the portfolios, their murmurs turning to heated whispers. Victoria Lane's face was pale as she scanned the evidence, while Harold muttered, "This is embezzlement, plain and simple." Ethan stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is a setup," he roared, pointing at me. "Riley's manipulating you all out of jealousy." I met his gaze, unflinching. "The documents are verified, Ethan. The originals are with our legal team, and I've frozen the Singapore accounts as of this afternoon." Lila's eyes filled with tears, her hand resting protectively on her belly as she processed the betrayal. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You said we were building something real." Eleanor finally spoke, her voice cutting through the din like a blade. "Richard warned you, Ethan. He structured the company this way because he saw your recklessness." She turned to me, her expression one of quiet respect. "Riley has been the true steward of this company for years." Ethan stared at his mother, betrayed, but I pressed forward, addressing the board. "I've called an emergency meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow to discuss next steps. Review the evidence carefully." I turned to Lila, softening my tone. "Ms. Harper, you're welcome to stay at the penthouse for now. You and your child shouldn't suffer for this." Lila nodded, stunned, her earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. Ethan's face was a mask of fury, but for the first time I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. He'd underestimated me, believing I was merely the supportive wife, content to host dinners and smile for photos. But I'd been watching, learning, and preparing for 15 years. The recording, the trust, the forensic reports, they were my weapons, honed in silence. As the servers cleared the plates, I signaled for dessert, my composure unshaken. "Chef Pascal's chocolate soufflés are waiting," I said, my voice calm. "Let's not let them go to waste." The room hesitated, then slowly resumed, but the air had changed. I wasn't just Ethan's wife anymore. I was the woman who'd turned his betrayal into his downfall, and Morgan Enterprises' future was now in my hands. The fallout was swift and merciless. By the end of the dinner, Ethan's empire unraveled. After the recording played, exposing his $43 million embezzlement scheme, the board's shock turned to resolve. Harold Winters, his face grim, proposed an immediate vote to remove Ethan as CEO, and it passed unanimously. Ethan stood, his face a mask of fury and disbelief, but security escorted him out, his protests echoing down the hall. I remained calm, the weight of 15 years of silent stewardship guiding my every move. "I've scheduled an emergency board meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow," I announced, my voice steady. "We'll address the leadership transition and asset recovery." The board members nodded, still reeling as I turned to Lila Harper, her eyes wide with betrayal. "Ms. Harper," I said softly, sliding my business card across the table, "you and your child are welcome to stay at the penthouse. Call me if you need anything." Lila nodded, clutching the card, her trust in Ethan shattered. The next morning, I stepped into the boardroom on the 53rd floor of the Morgan Grand Hotel, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, Richard's sapphire ring glinting on my finger. David Carter, our chief legal counsel, flanked me with forensic reports, and I assumed the role of interim CEO without hesitation. The board approved my appointment, acknowledging my long-hidden control of the 57% voting shares. Ethan's attorney, James Warrington, objected, but his arguments crumbled against the trust's ironclad terms. I outlined a recovery plan to repatriate the $43 million, restructure the Asian division, and protect our reputation. To my surprise, Lila reached out later that day, her voice resolute. "I'm done with Ethan," she said. Victoria Lane offered me a position with the Jiao Group in Hong Kong, a real one based on my work. I smiled, unsurprised by Victoria's quick move. "It's a good opportunity," I told her. "Your child will always be family to Ava and Noah." 3 months later, I stood in the renamed Sterling Legacy Suite, now warmed by local art, hosting a gathering to mark my appointment as permanent CEO. Morgan Enterprises had been transformed under my leadership. I established the Morgan Legacy Trust, securing 51% of the company in a charter emphasizing ethical governance, sustainability, and community investment. Ava and Noah, now active participants, embraced their roles not as entitled heirs but as earners of the legacy, their ideas shaping our sustainability initiatives. Lila, 8 months pregnant, arrived from Hong Kong where her work with the Jiao Group thrived. She was greeted warmly, Ava embracing her, Noah asking about her son's future. Ethan, relegated to a life of charity galas and fleeting tabloid fame, signed the separation agreement, retaining only personal assets. He'd shown little interest in his unborn son, but I ensured visitation rights, knowing family extended beyond his failures. As I looked out over the city, Eleanor joined me, her approval a quiet anchor. "You've built something worthy of them," she said. I nodded, knowing the true legacy wasn't power but the responsibility to protect it. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Morgan Grand Hotel's Legacy Suite, the city's glittering skyline stretching before me, a testament to the empire I'd fought to preserve. On my finger, Eleanor's sapphire ring gleamed, a symbol of the Morgan legacy now entrusted to me. Ethan's betrayal, his affair with Lila, his $43 million embezzlement scheme could have shattered our family and company. Instead, I turned his treachery into an opportunity, not just to save Morgan Enterprises but to forge a future worthy of Ava, Noah, and even Lila's unborn son. The Morgan Legacy Trust, my vision for ethical governance, ensured that power would be earned through integrity, not inherited through privilege. As I watched the city lights, I knew I'd reshaped a dynasty, not through vengeance but through resolve. This journey taught me lessons I hope resonate with you. First, patience is power. For 15 years, I worked in the shadows, learning every facet of the business, waiting for the right moment to act. Second, knowledge is your shield. The anonymous email and my forensic investigation armed me with undeniable truth, turning Ethan's lies against him. Third, compassion strengthens leadership. By supporting Lila despite her role in Ethan's betrayal, I built alliances, not enemies, ensuring a future for her child within our family. Fourth, legacy is responsibility, not entitlement. Trust One created demands that Ava, Noah, and their half-brother earn their place through merit, securing Morgan Enterprises for generations. Finally, courage defines change. Stepping from the shadows to lead as CEO required facing Ethan's wrath and the board's scrutiny, but it was the only way to protect what mattered most. As I gazed at the city, Eleanor joined me, her presence a quiet anchor. "Richard would be proud," she said, her voice warm with approval. I smiled, knowing the true legacy wasn't the buildings or wealth but the values we'd instilled, integrity, resilience, and family redefined. Ava and Noah, now partners in this vision, laughed with Lila across the room, their bond a promise of unity. I'd transformed betrayal into triumph, building a future where power served purpose. If this story of strength and resilience touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more tales of courage and redemption. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and join us in celebrating those who rise above adversity to create something extraordinary. Until next time, keep building your own legacy with purpose and heart.